Good, man.
Welcome, everybody, to Mud Flood was Armageddon. That's right, the Mud Flood was the Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. Yeah, welcome back, RJ, my big brother, and special guest, John the Morgile, Flat Earth legend. When was it? 2014. You went from zero to 25,000 subscribers because somebody on TV or something chose you over Mark Sargent and Math Powerland and Eric DeBay, and they ended up not liking that one bit. But give us a little recap of how you came into the flat Earth movement, John the Morgile.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Yeah, so it was actually 2015. So the first video I put out was May 1st, 2015, right at 11 years ago now, almost to the day. And so I originally made a couple of videos that gained some attention and did pretty well on YouTube. And I was actually approached by David Weiss because I was sort of a backup for it was Midnight in the Desert, which is the radio show with Art Bell. And originally it was supposed to have been Eric DeBay that did the show, but he kind of backed out at the last minute. And so I did the show, and I think I did pretty well, but I was still only I was like maybe 3 or 4 months into flat Earth, and so I was still pretty much a novice. 3, 4 months in, I knew the Earth was flat, but I wasn't 100% with my worldview on it. But it was something that I was passionate about and felt like I knew enough about to debate the Harvard astrophysicist Josh Grinley on the Art Bell show.
What it was,
Midnight in the Desert, and yeah, so my YouTube channel did pretty well at first, but then at a certain point, like overnight, the powers, which ought not be, decided that I was kind of stuck at this little plateau in terms of subscriber count and even advertising revenue on YouTube, to where I couldn't gain subscribers for I was at 25,000 subscribers after a few months, and then maybe a year, and I got stuck there for over 5 years. And 11 years on, I'm still at about 38,000 subscribers, which that's great. I love my subscribers and love the flat Earth people. They're definitely a different sort of breed. And but yeah, man, it's been a trip, and even 11 years on, it's still something that I'm very passionate about, and still you got to kind of pinch yourself because it's just so wild, so far out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, those of us who know you and have watched you over this last decade, the struggles with your wife. You want to touch on that and let people bring them up to date on that?
Yeah. So Mina passed away November 4th of last year. So it's been right at about 6 months ago. She died peacefully in her sleep. She had a lot of health problems. She had cancer, and she had other things going on with her. And yeah, she just got so small. She lost a bunch of weight. I think she was down to like 54 pounds in the end there. And yeah, I had her hospitalized on October the 18th. And I figured, they would probably keep her there for a couple of weeks, but on the 21st, so like the 18th was a Friday, I believe, and the 21st would have been like a Monday, I think, of October 2025, and they sent her home. And I went and picked her up, and I called the floor nurse and asked him, is she signing herself out, or is the doctor letting her go? No, the doctor says she's good to go. And she died within a couple of weeks from then, and yeah, it's hard, man. It's hard to adjust. We actually would have been on the 31st of this month. We have a 24-year anniversary coming up, so I still kind of still, like, I'll get up in the morning and then I'll just assume that she's there, and when I go to the store to get me something, I'll go to grab 2 of them, still, and it's been 6 months, so I guess that's probably something I'll have to deal with for a while. But yeah, she's no longer with us, man. Yep.
Well, I was there when both of my parents passed, and I've lost a sister. It takes a while. That I know exactly what you mean. Like when a group of family walks in the door, you expect mom to come in next, and then it takes a while to let that sink in. Now, where are you in what's going on in the world today? I mean, there's the Charlie Kirk, there's the assassinations, there's the mainstays have turned against flat Earth and are questioning it. There's UFO files being dropped. What on the earth is Morgile going to do with his free time?
So one thing that I thought was kind of interesting about the Charlie Kirk thing, I knew who he was, had seen some of his clips and stuff over the years, but for about 2 weeks or maybe like a month leading up to, prior to the assassination, my feed was just flooded with Charlie Kirk stuff, like all the time. It was really kind of weird. And, I may have clicked on some Candace Owens videos from time to time then. And, I wasn't like a big fan of Charlie Kirk, but yeah, it was like I was inundated with Charlie Kirk stuff for the couple of weeks leading up to the assassination. And I actually did a bit of a poll on my channel fairly recently. It wasn't just me. There was a lot of other people that were getting Charlie Kirk materials into their feed leading up to the assassination, which is interesting, because it kind of suggests crap, my little dog Lily's right here. She's got to go out. I thought she might sleep till about 11, but she's like sitting here whining. I'm going to have to take her out real quick if you guys don't mind. But yeah, and Erica Kirk kind of gives me the creeps. I have been following a lot of what Candace Owens has been doing with that. I think it's definitely a rabbit hole that there's something up with that. I'm not going to say I know what happened, but I definitely don't believe the official narrative. It definitely has the signature of like Mossad, which, I would not be surprised. But, in terms of an official apology or an official admission of guilt, I don't think we're ever going to get that. And, people like Candace Owens, I think she's doing a good job. But then at the end of the day, I also have some questions about Candace Owens herself. But I think she does good work on that.
Yeah, they were good. I put out a video September 12th and 13th calling it out as a total fake psyop, that all of a sudden Thomas Massey, Roman Catholic, Tucker Carlson, Roman Catholic, Candace Owen, recently converted Roman Catholic. It's all the Epstein all the time, and they're proving it was the Jews, and we're forgetting that it was the Roman Catholic priest raping and killing and doing all the satanic stuff for the last 200 years, and now all of a sudden, no, it's just Jeffrey Epstein, and they're into teenage girls. Bullshit. That's part of the and I can't get over the way they're now exposing the Jews. It is rightfully so. Is like, hey, that whole Schofield Bible thing is fake. That's not obvious. Obviously, that's not the real Jerusalem to me.
Right. And, to say the Jews is kind of a misnomer, too, because okay, so the Israeli government and the Israeli military brass, sure, point the finger at them. But, I know a lot of people that are Jewish that are not into any of that. And so I don't know.
Right. A lot of them have YouTube channels like I can't think of their names, but like the Young Turks and people like that, I used to go, well, that liberal commie. And now it's like, well, they're right to call that guy out, and there's some of those guys are Jewish, that's the way it goes. Now, are you going to take the dog out with your
Yeah,
phone?
she's squirming. I'm gonna have to put my boots on and take her for a walk. I'm really sorry, man. She was sound asleep just 5-10 minutes ago, and now all of a sudden she's squirming, wanting to go out. So let me put my boots on. I'm gonna walk her. I shouldn't be 15-20 minutes, and I promise I'll be right back. I'll leave my phone
I'm
running.
going to go ahead and show my disclaimer and the copyright thing and start showing a few videos, and we'll get you up to speed when you get back.
Okay, I'm gonna mute my phone, and I'll be back momentarily.
You got it.
Sorry, you guys.
Here's the deal. Hey, dog, if Festus had to go out, RJ would take him out. So here's that deal. I got
life's full of choices. Yeah.
It's nice to have RJ back. There's no echo of that. To me, that is a beautiful thing. I don't know. Did I show that thing before? I want to introduce, because as strange as it may seem, RJ, the flat earth legend, John the Morgile, he don't know nothing about the added 1,000 years. He is a professing Christian of Greek Orthodox. He's not a big fan of the Apostle Paul. We know that. I don't know if he's heard about things like this.
Yet about these ones that are further out of the main town, Lonavala. But that's why I wanted to bring you here, because people don't come to this spot. Wow, this is absolutely magnificent, guys. Oh my God.
It's another one of those, you walk it into this. It's carved into the mountain.
Brother, look at the size of these columns. Wow.
Plenty of detailing.
And RJ, they do have places where they can say, look, this was a hammer and a chisel. There's chisel marks. But then there's the level of polish on certain areas of the floors and that they can't explain. It's one of those things. I sent John a link about the greatest conspiracy ever, the Gemstone files. I wanted to get his opinion about that. I'm going to get you a little bit up to speed here
and see if there's documentation, newspaper archives, things like that can substantiate some of these claims that are being made in the Gemstone file, because there's a lot of really incredible claims that are being made. So we're just going to give a quick minute-long overview to start things off, and then we'll jump into the actual Gemstone file. So this guy is Aristotle Onassis. Maybe you've heard of him, maybe you haven't. A lot of people know him as the guy who married Jackie Kennedy after JFK's death, but there's way more to him than that. This guy was a freaking animal. He lived, so first of all, he was one of the richest people in the world at the time. And he lived on a private island in the Mediterranean Sea. It was named Scorpios. You can find more pictures of this place online. It is like incredible. It's the most incredible residence you've ever seen. He owned a 300-foot yacht that was the biggest yacht in the world at the time, and it's considered like the world's first super yacht. You can find pictures of that as well. It's incredible. He owned the Monte Carlo Casino the Casino Royale Casino in Monte Carlo. And this was described as the most luxurious casino in the world at the time. He owned the Olympic Tower in New York City and Olympic Airlines, which was a big airline. And his claim he made all this money. He was a big shipping guy. He had a huge shipping empire. And he made all his money shipping oil and other things. And that's kind of like the quote-unquote official story of how he made it. But according to the Gemstone file, he was the worldwide head of the mafia. He was basically the most powerful man alive, the guy behind the scenes who was...
And after World War II, he got his shipping empire because for pennies on the dollar, the United States said, what are we doing with all these ships? We should sell them. And he got them. And of course, I believe the mafia is running the world.
influencing and orchestrating
Did you hear that
things,
good enough, RJ?
for the mafia. And it's claimed
What's
Gemstone
this?
claims at least
Did
that
you
he made
hear
all his
the
money
audio?
selling drugs. He was basically
Well,
like
I can read, yeah, the
in particular
closed caption. Yeah.
and it's not really that much of a stretch to imagine that this was indeed the case. Aristotle Onassis' official story is that he was penniless at 18. He was totally broke. And then he moved to Argentina.
And he developed a Tesla coil. Oh, wait, no, that's their made up story for that one.
And he lived there for about a decade. And whatever happened in Argentina turned him from being penniless to being one of the richest people in the world. And then he moved back to the Greece area. Or he moved to Scorpios, rather.
Scorpios.
And,
anyway, they claim the claim is that the Howard Hughes, they kidnapped him like that guy in the 007 movies. It's all check it out.
We had to feed him, bathe him, clean up after him. Sometimes he would listen to us talk, but there was seldom any side that he understood. Mostly he just stared. She also described him as quite tall, well over 6 feet tall, and Howard Hughes was 6'3". He weighed practically nothing, just skin and bones, no muscles. He was helpless like a baby. His body was wasted away. So again, remember,
nobody saw Howard Hughes the last 20 years of his life except the Mormon mafia
figure from this era. So first of all, this was under oath that Robert Mayhew described this whole plot. And then Johnny Rosselli also described his role in this CIA plot to kill Castro. And so Gemstone is 100% right on how this went down. It claims that they tried to kill Fidel Castro 5 times and they failed every single time.
I wonder if that was like they tried to kill Trump 4 times now.
Well, without touching on the marriage between, the deep state and the mafia during the war, getting that main character out of the toilet, prison, so to speak, you kind of lose, as far as the flow of how people like that come from nowhere, allegedly, and are in full control, where, the military transferring the shipping dynasty for pennies on the via the taxpayer dollar.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Because they'll just buy more. It's like when the vision of fleeing Saigon when I was a teenager, and they were just pushing the helicopters off the ship because there wasn't any room for them, because they were flying them out, unloading the privileged ones that made it, push that one off so the next one could land. Because like in Afghanistan, they left behind so many collaborators. 20 years of collaboration with the United States. That was a lot of people to get killed and cleaned up. So I'm going to,
taking care of business.
I'm going to introduce that topic to John. I don't think he's heard about this. I really enjoyed Conspiracy RS
before the 1913 regrade. And the entrance, how far it is off the ground now, you can really notice a difference. Top left here, you have the image before the regrade, and this particular portion of the arch goes down basically to these steps. And over to the right here, more current image, but that same location, this arch, and where those steps would have ended basically, or started, depending on your perspective. Now the steps are significantly further down. So all this earth was removed, and we're told it revealed what in essence would have been a basement, a sub-level. But I think,
wouldn't you like to go back in time like John the Morgile? He's about to find out about the mud flood.
United States, and it turns out there was this regrade of the downtown area, and it's pretty fascinating. Some interesting revelations coming from it, for me anyway, and I'm going to share that with you, so it should be interesting. Let's get into it. Now, What happened to Grants Hill in downtown Pittsburgh? The hump cut took place. That's the name of the regrade project. It took place in the downtown area known as Grants Hill.
How about that? That's going to be, he's just going to, you know, I could just sit there. Am I going to be guilty? What if it actually, we were just talking about you, John, and I was saying, what if his mind is actually blown when he sees some of the proof from that?
Yeah, I'm pretty well familiar. I've actually got a playlist on my channel of original videos. I've delved into mud flood and contradictions in the historical narrative. I can send you a link at some point, but
yeah, I don't like to see it.
Yeah, so like I did a few. I did one on the Mount Rushmore. I did one on the crypts, so like the catacombs and crypts of Tartaria. And let's see, I've done several videos on mud flood, sort of stolen history type thing. It's fascinating, and you know, so once you get into flat Earth and your sort of eye is open to, I say, scientism, you know, like the conventional wisdom that all of the degree-toting parakeets and parrots know. If you actually question that stuff, it's not just in theoretical physics and in the official science, but also in capital H history. You find certain discrepancies that don't make a lot of sense. And, you know, the architecture is a big part of it, but yeah, like I'm still catching my breath. But yeah, so I'm definitely into it, and yeah, I'll let me catch my breath a minute if you want to roll what you were.
Called themselves Greeks. The Greeks called themselves Romans. The Etruscans dressed and spoke like the Greeks and the Romans, but they're only distant cousins. It's all crazy. Here's some new info while you get your Lizzie. Why did you wear out John the Morgile? So we were.
Pittsburgh, yeah, it's United States, and it turns out there was this regrade.
One of the big stars of what you would say, you know, little short season theology. And before he was leaving comments on my channel. It used to be called Flat Earth Nation Golden Age Past, and that was with RJ, and we had gone, you know, from maybe 3,000 to 9,500, but then I got kicked off because I was a big fan of ivermectin before you couldn't, you know, all of a sudden it was like, what do you mean you can't say ivermectin on YouTube? And so,
oh yeah,
he's a big one. This is his new one, and he's into, you know, the mud flood was Armageddon. It's the Bible thing.
Of the downtown area, and it's pretty fascinating. Some interesting revelations coming from it, for me anyway, and I'm going to share that with you, so it should be interesting. Let's get into it. Now, what happened to Grants Hill in downtown Pittsburgh? The hump cut took place. That's the name of the regrade project. It took place in the downtown area known as Grants Hill, and it began in 1909, and the project was completed with the final cut in 1913. And
I tend to interrupt a lot, John, but see how that 1909, 1913, everything ties into the Creature at Jekyll Island, the new fractal reserve system for the planned. It's hard to teach the God of love when you're in the midst of, this isn't the penultimate judgment. This is the final judgment before the great white throne. And there's still 20 more years of this, and it's only going to get worse.
This final cut, I think they mentioned that it removed approximately 15 feet of earth. And there are some interesting images showing the project ongoing. And you can see here this line talking about how high up all the sediment, the earth went. The street level was actually lowered quite a bit, as mentioned, 15, 16 feet in certain locations. Now, there are some revelations that I'm going to get to later in the video. Now, a couple buildings we're going to focus on. One is called the Frick Building, still exists. You can tell by looking at this building after this regrade, you can see that at one point, these columns, they actually touched the ground, the sidewalk at one point. So it's a really interesting example of an after. And you can see it a bit better here, right in the center here. This entrance is extremely elevated. These columns are well off the ground. And what we're told is that what you're seeing now was actually the basement that was uncovered after they removed this 15 or so feet.
We know that's nonsense. He went on to talk about rustification.
There's one specific detail that I think really gives away the whole plot, and it has to do with rusticated masonry. Basically, rusticated masonry is just an architectural technique where building stones are cut with roughened or textured faces and sharply beveled edges, leaving deep recessed joints between the blocks. You'll notice this type of architectural technique used on this Romanesque revival style architecture you can find. You can find it in Europe, but definitely in North America, fairly prevalent in certain areas. But what is interesting about it is basically you use this to display it. You don't hide this. This finished masonry, you wouldn't apply it to a basement you would never see. You know, something that's below ground, a sub-level, you don't see this type of finished masonry on something.
So the whole short season thing there, I mean, look, 116,000, and he hasn't been around like 6-7 years. So
if I could mention something real quick. So I did a video on Chicago mud flood history, Australia mud flood history, and I also did one touching on Seattle. I don't know if it was a video of its own, but it was in one of those videos. So they actually go the other way with it too, in terms of instead of lowering the street level in the official historical narrative, I think it's in Seattle, they have this official history where they claim that they actually raised the street level citywide, like 1 to 2 stories in the entire city. And the reason that they say that is to explain why there's these substructures. I guess this would have been in the catacombs video. There's all these substructures beneath the existing city that, you know, you can't really have an explanation for it, you know, because you're talking about dudes with horse and buggies that are supposedly, you know, going in there and making these substructures underneath existing buildings. But no, so they say it the other way. They say, no, they raised the city street level 1 to 2 stories citywide. To me, that's just so absurd, so ridiculous, but that's what it says in the history books, so everybody believes it, you know?
I'm looking up a picture right now.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And, you know, to me, what was so funny or it's interesting is you'll find almost identical narrative in Australia. And, you know, so they call the United States, they call America the new land, or what do they call it? The new world, right? But Australia would have been colonized, like I think it was 110, 120 years after, you know, Columbus sailed the oceans blue. And you'll find similar architecture, similar narrative in Australia, which is just so weird. Like, how are we finding similar? Now, the one thing that Australia seems to be lacking are the star forts. There are some people that claim there used to be star forts in Australia. I can't find any evidence of that.
Oh,
but
you haven't looked recently.
Oh, so in Australia?
Yeah.
There may be. Yeah, there may be.
They're you know, that's a weird thing of such an empty country with I'm not even going to say they're the best examples, but obviously they're not jumping right out here to show it. but everything is underground. You know, the tunnels of the Maginot Line. They all almost, I think all of the mountains are hollowed out. So we have, I showed you that, you know, I was watching this one. You guys might want to look at
The
this.
rebuild
$1
increased
billion.
throughput by about 53%, from that 3,600 number to 5,500. The quick, obvious downside is the toll. While it will be optional to take, this extra space is a managed lane where every vehicle pays, and there's no HOV free use policy in the Mountain Express lane system. Then there's the road network around the interstate. One of the more important fixes is,
You know, this was supposed to be the light on the hill. What else did we have here? These things carved into, you know, down to the micron. But if this were built before the flood, there's so much going on right now in the world. The Gemstone, the Charlie Kirk, the you know, but the main thing, we're what you did. We were talking before we went live, and before RJ joined, that as far as things go now, we, RJ and I, we're not into Atlantis. We're not into UFOs. We're certainly not into.
Did you mess with your volume, Alan?
Is that better?
No, it is. That's better.
Because I turned.
No, it's still.
Hello.
Oh, it's in and out. Now it's nothing.
There's no freaking way that you don't hear me. No freaking way.
I can hear you now.
Because
Now,
all right, because otherwise I don't get it. I'm deaf. Hey, the most important thing that, you know, and I wasn't shy of, you know, I wanted to have you on. We were going to witness what RJ and I do as theology. And RJ, there's a lot of pressure on people like John the Morgile right now. No way.
you're in and out. In and out. Fades. I mean, unless you speak.
It's almost like there might be a short in that cord or something.
Yeah, the volume fades and then it like goes to nothing. Then it comes back clear only for a moment. And then it fades. Now it's nothing. Yeah.
Isn't that what always happens? It's always
not
something.
always, but when it does happen, it really sucks a lot. Yeah, for sure. So,
yeah, technology is only great when it works.
Well, yeah, dead air. Yeah, you can't communicate with dead air, regardless of what you're showing. It's hard to determine what the other individual is thinking, especially when they're not saying anything, or unless you can read lips. I can't.
Yeah, it's always something. But yeah, no, it's a fascinating topic, man. It just by and large, I've always been fascinated with Angkor Wat because, you know, supposedly that's in Cambodia. Angkor Wat, the temple, the main temple at Angkor, it's just massive. I want to say it's between 5 and 10 million stone blocks were made to construct the thing. They don't even know how many blocks were used.
Yeah,
There we
better.
go. Yeah.
I'm using the computer's microphone. I don't have another USB port for this one, but what I mainly wanted to let you know is that I don't know if RJ and I can do another show, but to us, it's very important to stick only to, what we call the 39 books of the Old Testament, 27 books of the New Testament. And we understand, and I understand that's a minority right now. People want to, to me, it's not a small deal. The Trinity that they added 1,000 years, that really alone, for a while, we were the only channel talking about we're reading the book of Revelation wrong, that it happened then at the end of that generation where he said, some of you will be alive, some of you will be martyred. And now thousands of channels are teaching that, and 900 and, this is just round numbers, but 900 of them are because it's Atlantis, or it's the clowns are aliens, or the Nephilims were, giants and demon possessed, angels got physical and mated with humans. And we don't teach any of that because we don't find it in scripture. We only find that in the other books of like the Enoch specifically, Jubilees, Ash.
Yeah, Giants, yeah.
And if we stick with the Bible, there's a way to explain everything, including that we're living stones and that there really were ancient Elohim gods that were created for an object lesson for the angels in heaven, because the first sin couldn't have been in the Garden of Eden because a sinner showed up there to deceive them. So we know it's hard. I'm throwing a lot at you, but we really do try to teach the Bible a different way, and it resonates with many people, except the unnatural aversion for them going to tell their mom, I don't believe in the Trinity anymore. Anything I missed on that, or any questions? Because that's, as long as we have RJ here, he's good at answering those type of questions.
Well, I mean, so like for me personally, I don't necessarily have any sort of belief in the Trinity. I don't think that's something that Jesus himself taught. So I have some issues with the official Christendom, with the official dogma of the Roman Catholic Church, or the Hebrew Roman Church, as I sometimes call it, because, so most Christians today, well, I guess I'll start with this, don't believe in burnt offerings or blood sacrifice, which was the belief by the ancient Hebrews that, if you sin all week long, you can go and take one of your best goats and go and sacrifice it, and then you can wash away the sins of that week with the blood of your sacrifice. So I don't think Jesus taught that. I don't think he believed it. And I don't think most rational Christians today believe that sort of thing. And to juxtapose and to apply burnt offerings and blood sacrifice to Jesus, I just don't believe that he taught that. And personally, I think that the work that Jesus did was more than just, the passion on the cross and the resurrection. So like I believe that when he was in the tomb for 3 days, he actually did work in the spirit realm that he does not get credit for by official Christendom. I also have come to believe that the original apostles and the original disciples of Jesus were, they were hunted down. They were branded as criminals and heretics by the Roman hierarchy and by the Hebrew hierarchy. And a lot of their books were deemed as heresy, and they would kill you if they found you with certain books that weren't official dogma. And so just with that, now that doesn't necessarily mean that I subscribe to all of the so-called Gnostic scriptures, but I just try to sometimes look outside the official dogma. And I've found a lot of pay dirt in that. Now, that isn't to say that I don't, I do love the New Testament and the King James Bible. I think there's a lot in there, but there's a lot of stuff that has been omitted. And it seems to me that the Apostle Paul was sort of the editor-in-chief of the official New Testament. Over half of the books in the New Testament are officially, 100% attributed to Paul. And it seems to me like he maybe had editorial control over the other half of the books as well. But yet Paul never knew Jesus. He never met him. He never ate with him. The first time that Paul hit the scene was he was on the road to Damascus with 100 centurions to hunt down Christian heretics and bring them to justice. So this would have been way after the crucifixion and resurrection. So, to me, it's just kind of strange that Paul has so many books and so much weight in the New Testament, but people like, Doubting Thomas and Judas Iscariot and Mary Magdalene, their writings are completely omitted from the official Bible, and I just have some issue with that.
A lot of people do. I personally, having tried to get through a number of the apocryphal books, the unsatisfactory answer for everyone who's not a believer is, if those books don't match what's written on our heart, we can't go with it.
Absolutely.
We pretty much believe, and I'll share a scripture with you that I like to use, that it's the last book of the Bible that Jesus had. And in chapter 3, after he's done talking about how they robbed God, he talks about, then those who feared the Lord spoke with one another. To me, that implies a very small group. Yahweh, Jesus, the Creator, God, paid attention and heard them, and a book of remembrance was written for him of those who feared the Lord and esteemed his name. They shall be mine, says the Lord of hosts, in the day when I make up my treasured possession. And I will spare them as a man spares his son who serves him, because it has to be a qualifier. And that's how you distinguish between the righteous and the wicked. And then whenever we find the New Testament, when it's not found in the fake Dead Sea Scrolls or the Ethiopian Bible, we know what 39 books are in there. They're the ones that you always find. We know what books they find in the New Testament, and it's not Thomas. It's not those guys. And in my world, it certainly can't be anything based on Josephus, because that's the false history of where they provide a Constantine and a reason where that's the Roman Empire and Jesuits are good and they taught us the globe. None of that happened, because Josephus would have been one of the Jews that said, I'm washing my, the blood's on our hands. And it was it was a worldwide judgment, not just a local judgment, and life went on and Josephus wrote a book and Polycarp lived to be 130. I don't believe any of that.
Well, so like, I don't know, one that's it's not specifically considered Gnostic, but I find very interesting is like the Gospel of Nicodemus is another one that's not in there that I think is very profound. But I always bring it back to the parable of the crooked path with the hidden gate and the broad path with the wide gate. You know, even Jesus himself warned us, you know, don't be deceived by the wolves in sheep's clothing. You know, don't follow the herd down the wide path to damnation. Basically, he told us there's going to be a hidden path that you're going to have to seek out for yourself, and it's not just going to be, you know, handed to you on a silver platter. And with that in mind, and when you see the sort of injustices that were carried out in the name of Jesus, you know, by like, you know, the Roman emperors and the Crusades and that sort of thing, it just makes me pause to revisit certain scriptures that are not official Roman Hebrew canon. And again, not to down the official canon, but I just kind of have to double check my premises sometimes. And I found like the Nag Hammadi scriptures, you find a lot of the gospels that are in the official, you know, 4 books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But then you also find what is it? The Apocryphon of John, the Apocryphon of James, the secret, the hidden books of these apostles, and you find other things in the Nag Hammadi scriptures that are totally omitted, and some of the stuff's pretty far out. Granted, so yeah, I mean, you got to take some of it with a grain of salt, but at the same time, I try not to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because I have found, you know, just certain confirmations and certain enlightenment in these so-called Gnostic scriptures that are labeled as heresy by the official church that seem to, you know, they've actually done positive things for my faith and for my relationship with Jesus. So, you know, there's that. That's me personally.
Do you have anything you want to add, RJ?
Well, it can be difficult or time-consuming to try and take in all this additional literature and then evaluate that with what's revealed in the 66-book Bible. Again, I don't know what translation you may be from what eyes, you know, that you're taking that translation in, but English, there's a variety of choices, certainly. I mean, unless you're fluent in the original text, which I'm not, but it doesn't hurt to, you know, go through the additional time that's required to see, well, maybe it's not omitted, but it's obfuscated in how they put it in the sentencing and the language, and it's a distraction just in how scripture is broken apart. Very suspicious. It can change the meaning.
There were no original,
you know,
chapters and verses,
and without being aware of what man has done with the Word of God,
right.
Doesn't make it any easier.
Now, for me, my biggest objection is the nonstop, constant headache of people who believe that because the book of Enoch was left out of scripture and doggone it, it should be in there. Half the people in the short season movement believe angels physically mated with humans, and that Satan and Adam tag teamed Eve and she had 2 births. None of that is in scripture, and there's a perfectly a rational explanation without the nonsense that Enoch brings to the table, along with multiple heresies that everybody takes with a grain of sand in Enoch, that it obviously was written by somebody familiar with the Greek god system, which Abraham knew nothing about, and Enoch is supposed to be older. So there's arguments on a lot of it, but I want to make this a time of where, the Morgile is back. I wanted to let him know what I've been up to. I wanted to find out what he's been up to. I know he's had a tough time lately, but he's still there. Now, I think that we ought to just, see if there's anybody that has any questions for Jon or anything that you want to go with. I think that, that worked out pretty good. Jon, is there any way that it would be easy to have somebody help you? Because right now, this is a rough time for everyone. And I think, been so consistent. If anybody can help, how would they?
So yeah, I am right now. I'm in New Orleans, which I've never been to New Orleans. I've been here for about 2 months now. So after Mina died, which was November 4th of 25, about a month or 2 months after that, I went to a doctor's appointment and came home. And when I pulled into my driveway, I got pulled over by the cops, and they arrested me for driving on a suspended license. And I sat in jail for about 5 weeks, which was no fun. Nobody knew what happened to me. I was really worried about my dog the whole time because, they don't let you, I wasn't able to get a phone call out. Probably took me a good 3 weeks to get a letter off. And so when I got out, a subscriber of mine, somebody that I'd been speaking with over the phone for a number of years, was taking a road trip in her RV and, asked me, would it be okay if she stopped by? And I said, that'd be fine. And so when she arrived, her and her twin sister were pretty persistent and pretty persuasive, convinced me to basically uproot my life and travel with them to New Orleans and make a go of it here. The RV was in 1978, and it started having some issues on the way. So like the power steering was leaking fluid and the brakes were starting to go out. And so we wound up parked outside of a Mormon church for quite a while. Long story short, she informed me 2 weeks ago that basically she was leaving town and I was not welcome to come with her. And she offered to take my dog and told me that the dog would be very happy with her. And of course, that's my baby right there. I did not agree to that. And so this was 2 weeks ago Friday. So basically I was just dumped off in New Orleans with nowhere to live and no way to get around and very, very little money. And so I'm kind of just still stuck here. And, I probably would have gone back to South Carolina by like bus or a train or something by now. But Lily, the dog, they don't allow dogs, even though she is an emotional service dog registered. They just don't let you bring dogs onto planes and trains and buses and things like that. So I'm kind of stuck here. And I've been working construction through a temp agency, which, if I work every day, it's just enough to pay the rent on this hotel room. So I'm kind of living by the skin of my teeth. And if anybody would like to help, I do have, PayPal and Cash App and Venmo. I can give you the links if you wanted to, but it's so like the keyword is the Morgile on all those. So you've got like paypal.me/the Morgile. Cash App is $the Morgile, and Venmo.com/the Morgile. If you wanted to contribute, anybody out there wanted to contribute that way, you can. But really, just prayers. I do believe in the power of prayer, and I know that God has a plan for all of us, and He does work in mysterious ways. And so I definitely don't turn down help from the prayer warriors too. So I'll take all the help I can get in that regard. But yeah, definitely check out, my channel. I've got tons of stuff on there that most people haven't seen. I've I've spent a lot of time creating videos that just nobody watched, man. Like, even though I've got almost 40,000 subscribers on my channel, I could spend 150 hours putting a very well done video together, and it might get seen by 2,000 people ever, and that's on a good day. And that was when I had my computer that had all of my software on it that I no longer have. Definitely check out my playlists on the Morgile channel. I've got a playlist for looking into the Gnostic scriptures and reading like audiobooks on the Nag Hammadi text. I've got a playlist about mud flood and revisiting the questioning the historical narrative and stolen history. I've got a playlist just dedicated to flat earth stuff. I've got one that's kind of a mixed bag that's, my personal favorites of all the genres. So definitely check out my playlists on the Morgile channel. I'm pretty sure you're going to find stuff on there that you have not seen that I'm very, I don't like to say that I'm proud of, but stuff that I spent a lot of time on that I think is good work that just YouTube does not show us,
Right.
Flat Earthers much algorithmic love. You know what I mean? So
they have their favorites.
Yeah.
And you're not one of them, neither is
No.
RJ.
Yeah.
I am, but I'm just not popular. Hey, I want to thank you. Now, what you can do is, you know how we've been communicating in the email, put all of that in one little blurb, and I'll put it in the comments and pin it for those ways to help you. And I'd like to invite you back. We can do some debates about the Apostle Paul and different things, because I know you're not going to blow up and decide to drive to Colorado and beat me up. You're not, you don't.
Well, and I hate to even, I hate to even say debate. I would just say, definitely check out some of my videos on it, because I tend to, like when I get to talking, I lose my train of thought and I don't make the point that I intend to make. But when I put a video together, I'll spend a lot of time writing out a script and then editing that exactly the way that I want it and putting it in video format where you have the benefit of, diagrams and video and stuff like that. So definitely check that out. And if you want to talk about it, I'm always open to that. But no, I don't take any of it personally, No,
and when people realize, as hopefully we talk together today, and Lord willing in the future, what you went through with Mina for 20 years of active and still doing what I consider, foundational flat earth work, that, hey, what else are you going to do? Yeah, I expect some good work from you, man. And I know you have put out some good work. So anyway, like I said, I'm here to help in any way, but I'm always going to be witnessing my side. Anything you want to close with, RJ?
Well, just hopefully this continues to be a memorable weekend in more than one aspect.
Anything you got, John? Nope.
No, it's a pleasure hanging out with you guys. I appreciate everything and much love to your subscribers and viewers. And man, I'd love to come back and hang out with you anytime, man. Just keep in touch. And I'll send you a text with some links to a couple of playlists and the links that you mentioned. And yeah, man, my phone number is no mystery either, so I don't mind if you share that. If somebody wants to send me a text, that's fine. If you just cold call me, I probably won't answer, because I just get literally inundated, not on Sundays, thank God, but just inundated with telemarketing calls all day long, just scores and scores of telemarketing calls. And it's always the same thing, you know, and God love them, you know, Southeast Asian people that barely speak a lick of English trying to sell me insurance. And it's just, it gets to the point where if I don't recognize a phone number, I probably won't answer it. But if you send me a text, you know, that's the best way to get in touch with me. And I don't mind talking on the phone and that sort of thing. So yeah, anytime.
There he is, Jon the Morgile. You know what I like to say is, it's a flat earth nation. The golden age is past because the mud flood was Armageddon. I know it's hard for people because you got an orphan trained brain. You've been a Hegelian dialectic, but they've added 1,000 years. Jesus already returned. We're in the last stages, but there's 20 more years. It's going to be hard. This is a judgment. Me and my friends never going to tell you anything else. Amen.
Amen.
Aho, aloha, arrivederci, ciao, sayonara, auf Wiedersehen, nakame. Adios, amigos. From the border of southern Colorado into Mexico, that's how I like to say goodbye.